Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, McCallion, and my good friend and co-host Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you this Friday morning?
I'm awesome, Mal. Been for a run along the river. You're set for the day ahead. How's your week been?
Beautiful. Yeah, really, really good. Thanks. Busy as ever. So it's always good, isn't it? Coming to a Friday like that. There has also been a lot of things happening in the paired worlds of property and AI. So let's crack on with our property news. All right. First up, hot off the press this morning, Rightmove has released its half-year results for the first half of 2026, and they are interesting, I think is the word that I'm going to use first up. So their charges to agents are up 9%. So that is now 1,636 on average. Most of the agents that I speak to are paying way more than that because that's dragged down by the corporates. They have slightly trimmed their growth revenue forecast from 8 to 10% down to 6 to 8%. So that's obviously going to cause it some problems, as we'll see in the share price. It's blamed entirely on new homes developments being down. The big claim from the report is that it's got the highest half-year agency retention in over 10 years, so 96%. Branches are up 1% to 16,591. So essentially agents are staying and they're spending more. And that's obviously baked in through the different types of products and services that Rightmove is now selling. But I think really the kind of big story is about the what that's done to the share price. So the share price yesterday fell 6.4%. Now, some of that is going to be through the disappointing Foxtons results, which we may touch on yesterday, but also the Bank of England holding base rates where it is. But then it's fallen another 4% this morning as the market opened, and it's now down about 42% for the whole year. So it was 827 when it released its half-year results last year. It is now down to 428. So significantly down. So look, Matt, obviously lots to kind of unpack and only about 20 minutes that we've been chatting to kind of get to grips with what all these numbers mean. What's your take?
Well, there's no burn and bounce, but I guess it's a bit soon to be seeing that right in half-year reports. But some of the things they did call out, which I think are trying to be positive, it said that the AI-enabled online valuation tool generated 50% more unique valuation lead for estate agents. And its recently launched Ask Rightmove Conversations feature was increasing customer engagement and improved lead conversion. Obviously, positives that they're trying to gloss over the impact that the share price had last year when they announced that spending on AI, wasn't it? Looking back, the announcement was $1 million over 3 years with 18 committed, and the share price absolutely tanked. So yeah. Some positive points in there, and the revolving credit facility so that they can pay out dividends to shareholders is another interesting one in the mix there. But it's they keep squeezing the clients, don't they, to make sure they get that profit coming through.
So that 200 million revolving credit facility, I think, is one of the real kind of eye openers. So basically, they're looking to in the next year give back over 400 million to shareholders. Right, so that's 400 million of profit, or the money that they have got from agents giving back to their shareholders over the next 12 months. But that's partly funded by this 200 million credit. So they're borrowing money in order to feed their shareholders. Feels a little bit desperate to try and prop up the share price and that sort of stuff.
In their pomp, isn't it? Is that not what the Glazers did with Manchester United?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yes. So what it's going to do is, it was in the last 6 months that they've fallen out of the FTSE 100. It was in the last 6 months that this, the court case was allowed to go through, got a date, all that sort of stuff. Within here as well, it says that it's already spent something like 2.3 million on legal fees for that 1.5 billion court case. And that's likely to go up to potentially 7 million during the course of the year, depending on how it goes. So, there is a lot going on here that is not great news for Rightmove. I think as well, what slightly chilled me as I was looking through it was the CEO, Johan Svanstrom, saying that they are looking to roll out agent work tools, so workflow tools for agents into their businesses, which just screamed kind of Trojan horse, right? It just, if you let Rightmove come in and, operate anything in your business, then that's pretty much it, right? That's over. It's got all of your data. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those land and how they try and market those as well. But yeah, it's the bad news is, they continue to increase their prices. The agents seem to be absolutely, locked in. They can't move, but that perhaps plays into the narrative that the court case is chasing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I did wonder if you're screaming Trojan horse in the week that the Odyssey came out in movie theatres is related.
How did I miss that segue? Well done.
No, thank you.
Very good. All right. Next up, we have another court case. This is from about Connell's old CEO, David Livesey, versus the Skipton Building Society. Now, he alleged bullying and age discrimination. He won the discrimination side, didn't get the bullying. But yes, he's got some millions, I think, is what he's claiming as a result of this. There's some intriguing details. We have to be careful in terms of what we say, but there's details around what he was paid for his shares versus what other senior execs in the business were paid. Something like a difference of 7 million versus 420,000 or something he got for his. So, again, there does seem to be some strange stuff here, and obviously the court, the tribunal, that ruled on this agrees. So yeah, just a bit grubby, isn't it, Matt?
It is, and you have to be careful what you say, exactly as you just said yourself, Mal. In an age discrimination case, you just referred to him as the old CEO, but I think you meant former CEO, didn't you?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely right. I appreciate that clarification on the pod. But yes, so and the actual damages haven't been awarded as yet. The responsibility has been allocated, and they will decide on exactly how much Mr. Livesey will get very shortly. All right, our final story on the property news this week is about Dwelly. So Dwelly, for those who have been listening in, are the ones that are basically going around buying up loads of lettings businesses. So they've got an amazing piece of AI tech, which they claim allows them to essentially super professionalize how these lettings agencies operate, and is going around buying them up and putting in this tech. And then what they say they're aiming at is to have what they called wealth management levels of service to landlords, essentially. So real kind of white glove, bespoke, using AI tools. So they've got 125 million in this week to go around and acquire some more lettings agents. Matt, really quite aggressive, these guys, and seem to be doing pretty well.
Very much so, and it's been an interesting journey for them, certainly from what I understand, in terms of started off as a technology business, sort of peddling their wares, for want of a better phrase, to companies, and not really making much headway. So they decided to start acquiring lettings agents. Actually, that's where the private equity's sort of seen the benefit. So they're getting this additional credit now because of the fact that they're becoming a lettings agent using the tech that they built in the first instance. I think from what the companies I speak to, so people are starting to take notice now of how they're doing it. And it's a little bit like, who's the company that Dexter's acquired? Was it Housey? Where they had, it was like a letting platform, wasn't it? And then Dexter's acquired it. And from what I understand, Dexter's online presence is almost sort of back-ended by Housey with CFP as the client accounting product from old days, alongside Vibra Live on the sales side. So it sounds like Dwelly's journey is similar to that in terms of tech first, and then letting agents now sort of looking into how they're managing this.
Yeah, and I think the kind of the sort of takeaway for those who are involved in lettings and things like that out there is, if this technology is as transformative as these guys say it is, if you deploy it in the right way, it can be astonishing. Then pretty soon, perhaps in an area near you or your very patch, there's going to be a quite an aggressive letting agent kind of starting to try and attract your landlords. So, this is something, and we'll talk about it in Tool of the Week later on as well. But yes, in terms of getting to grips with AI, understanding it, seeing what it can potentially do for your business, there is no better time than now to really start getting, learning it, working with it, seeing that if it can solve your problems. I was speaking with an agent earlier on this week who had basically employed a consultant for 6 months to try and do this one particular job, and it had not happened. Then he went to his web developers and said, look, can you just do this? And they said, well, no, we can't. And then we've been chatting away, and he's basically now kind of sitting up late at night, gone midnight, and actually using Claude and some of the other tools to build it, and basically solved it within a few days. So, this is what is possible. And, once you start getting into it, then there's loads of different things, those repetitive tasks that you just come across every single day, you can just solve by using some of these tools. So go play. All right. That is the end of our property news. We have some AI and tech news to bring you as well. All right. So, a lot of this is in tech this week is about this rogue AI that we mentioned, I think, briefly last week. Basically, it's an OpenAI, which has gone rogue and entered into Hugging Face, which is another tech business that basically hosts a lot of different models. There's varying levels of complexity about the actual story itself. So it seems like it is either ChatGPT 6 or something very akin to ChatGPT 6. And it has basically was set a task to go and win the benchmarks. Okay. So the benchmarks tell, those that care how smart these things are. So it basically went and tried to learn what the benchmarks were and how it can almost game the system. And it broke into Hugging Face. It used some credentials they had found online, just lying around, managed to get inside the Hugging Face system, then learned what the benchmarks were and then tried to apply its skills to win those. But Matt, it's really sort of pushed out quite a lot of second and third level impacts, right?
That's exactly right. Again, Mal, it's been an interesting one when we're normally talking about model releases and capabilities and sort of much more on the tech and product side. It's more political this week and sort of around governance and that side, because that's kicked on, and we've had over the last few weeks sort of the scaremongering from Anthropic saying, AI needs to have a license like people need a license for guns, and then the Fable being rolled back in after Mythos and 5.6. And at the start of the week saw Sam Altman of OpenAI actually go to the White House to prep them for ChatGPT 6. And while he was there, this incident occurred while obviously carryover from previous. And then the two big impact things that came out is, and Vincent Wang of NVIDIA came out with his first ever tweet, because that's what we still call it on the artist formerly known as Twitter, don't we? To basically say, in a world where there's been a lot of positive about open source and open weights models, so having not just that you have to pay for them and they're behind closed doors, that we should continue that, because there's been a lot of, off the back of Fable, people utilizing things like GI 5.2, and Kimi came out last week as well, didn't it? And people say, well, actually, this is bad news because open source and open weights means that anybody can get hold of these and do really bad things. And Vincent Wang's come out and said we should get behind this because in the 80s we had Linux, and there's a lot of things built on top of Linux, and actually a lot of our IT and tech that we work on is built fundamentally on open source and collaboration, and yes. That got a heck of a lot of traction. In fact, rather than list off everybody who got behind it, it's probably easier to list off the companies that didn't. And when I'm saying everybody who got behind it, exactly. And we're talking about people from Google, from Microsoft, everybody apart from Anthropic and OpenAI. Although in the last 24, 48 hours, OpenAI have come out to support this, let's get behind open weights, and which is positive. So the White House and US government specifically started taking notice. And then 24 hours later, there was another open letter, because that's what we call tweets these days. But I think this one was more of a letter from AI workers to say, look, you need to slow us down. Yeah. Which was really sort of hit Washington, and then started to sort of cause a lot of questions. And again, there's a lot of people getting behind this. But the AI workers who come out from Anthropic, Google DeepMind, OpenAI, and Meta. So there's been a lot of noise right at the time where Sam Altman is in the White House, sat next to Trump, talking about GPT-6, and I think probably asking him not to throttle it in the same way everything else has been.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it is one of those weeks where, there's just been a lot of kind of noise rather than action. So just to kind of recap. So the big large language models, your Claudes, your ChatGPTs, they're closed models. You pay a license and it does its thing and you don't know how. Whereas open source or open weight models are those where you can actually see, you can download them and you can put them onto your own kind of premises and use them there. So you're not constantly kind of sending things to a third party. So if you're able to use those open source models, then obviously Anthropic and OpenAI don't make as much money because you're using something that's on your own desk rather than elsewhere. But obviously the attraction of that is that you get to keep your stuff, right? And it doesn't go anywhere else. And the kind of essence of your business, and again, just kind of thinking about Rightmove and its move into agent workflows, the essence of your business remains within your business, and that I think is a huge attraction, and certainly something that we work here. Now that there is this big movement towards it, I think NVIDIA's got its own one. Meta's released one recently. Loads of others are starting to build these things out. There's many Chinese ones. You've mentioned Kimi and others. So, there's a lot kind of that rests on this. If we are able to have these open source models, then that allows, essentially a kind of Cambrian explosion of creativity and people just being free to kind of do whatever they want to do. But, and it's a big but, these are very, very powerful things. And in the wrong hands, they can do very, very, very naughty stuff. So I think that's the tension. it's going to be really interesting to see which way it lands. The lobbying is going to be incredible around this. And, if you've got Trump or whomever up in the White House basically putting his thumb up or thumb down to decide, which way this falls. And I think the fact that Jensen Huang and all those others have called for this, called for open source to be supported, I would hope that would have an impact. But yes, the money for the big large language models, the big frontier labs is enclosed. So that may be something that Sam Altman has been offering Trump, more than the 5% of the business that he was offering him before, just to try and smooth this thing through. So we will keep an eye on it. As you say, that then there's the kind of pacing letter, which is, you got to slow us down because this is runaway kind of amazing tech. Once we get to what they call recursive self-improvement, which is where AIs can improve themselves, that's where things just go through the roof, and it feels like we're nearly there, and that's why everybody is trying to just slow down the horses a little bit. But yes, it's going to be I'm sure another kind of week coming up next week of a bit of intrigue. Maybe we'll see ChatGPT 6 as well. But yeah, there's certainly going to be a lot of talk as well as model releases, I would suspect. Next up, we're going to talk about basically some price cuts that are coming through from OpenAI and from Anthropic. So we very often refer to the astronomical costs of Anthropic's Claude, particularly Fable 5 and even Opus as well. But yes, there's been something of a price war starting up, hasn't there, Matt?
We pat ourselves on the back. So we called this maybe 3-4 weeks ago when Fable 5 was getting kicked along again, having been threatened as being shut down. And suddenly see that I think you on your Pro have got tokens. You don't have to just go for subscription and API costs on that. So we sort of said, look, this isn't going to just be threatened to charge us through the roof for it when there's two competing models. And we've seen that from Anthropic. They're reducing theirs. And now this week, OpenAI have done the same. And I think we touched on it before. You occasionally get the prompts in these, either the Co-work app or the Codex app to say, would you like some more credits? It's always said, yes, please. So I encourage you to carry on engaging with them. And we've seen that this week, 5.6 Terra and 5.6 Luna have had I think it's 20% reduction in price on Terra and 80% reduction on price on Luna. That's sort of default pricing being reduced. But also, as you start to use these models, especially 5.6, there's times where you've got the sort of the trigger to get it to work extra hard as you're sort of putting through your work and setting your slash goal and such like. And there's times to think, well, this is really important. I want to give it absolute, full throttle. And actually doing that for absolutely everything is overkill, because you end up finding that it goes off down a rabbit hole that you don't need it to do. So it's like making sure you're setting the gearing based around the questions and the situations you're asking. So like, I've just built a skill to take certain documents and produce executive summaries out of it. Like, that skill's written, it's good to go. So it's now a bit of a sort of a factory almost. So I don't need to work extra hard on everything with that. It's a case of taking one file, running it through a skill and outputting another one. So on that, I can just set it to medium and I'm not burning credits, and it works through. And again, you can set that off for one on something like Luna or maybe Terra, like a more of a middle range, rather than getting sold to go off and all that deep reasoning, extended thinking, using loads of tools to go off and scour your Slack messages or your Confluence articles to do that. So not only are the pricings coming down, but use of the models in certain scenarios can help sort of keep track of that as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's obviously good news for everybody because anything that improves the price of compute is got to be positive. But I think it does kind of speak to these are very profitable businesses now, right? So actually per token profits are quite high. They're up in the sort of 40-50% range. So yes, they've got some scope to bring them down, and it's great that they are. It is interesting that it's happening in the week that everyone's talking about open source, because nothing beats a price discount like free, which is what essentially these open weight models will be. But yes, it does show that actually competition is a good thing, and yeah, they're obviously feeling the pinch a little bit more as well, I reckon. All right, next up we've got Elon Musk. It's been a while since we've chatted about him, but he is back in the news because yesterday it emerged that he is suing the state of Minnesota, which has basically created the first in-nation law banning nudification technology on websites and apps. So Essentially, to recap, Grok is Elon Musk's large language model. It features on Twitter/X, and you can use it on its own. Basically, one of its key draws was that it was able to build these images. I say key draws if this is your thing, and it was certainly a lot of people who were very keen to use this, where you can actually put people in there and actually change their appearance, change their clothing, etc., and even remove them. So that has been it's outlawed in the UK, and that particular tool is not available, or you can't do certain things with it over in the UK. But over in the States, this is the first time that they've tried to actually set a law up that bans it. And rather than kind of comply and sort of roll over, then Musk and his business XAI or SpaceX AI have decided to sue for the right to allow AI generated nude images of real people without their consent. Bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's many other words, is there? It's like, obviously he's quite proud of the fact he had a spicy mode in Grok, and his guardrails are a lot more fast and loose, let's say, than Anthropic and OpenAI, and it's almost part of his MO in a way, but this takes it to another level. And I was actually thinking about the other side of this, which is we had Alistair Campbell at a Kerfuffle conference last month over in Newport at the ICC there, and one of the stories he was telling on stage is that back when camera phones first came in, and how unfortunately it led to people starting to do what we now know as upskirting on public transport. And at first people were just like, well, that's not on, but no one was really standing up to it. And then one person was like, well, no, I'm not dealing with this. So went to the police, and the police went, there's no actual law for this. So they then pushed and worked it through, and that is now known as upskirting. And it's like this Minnesota taking this stand, I think is absolutely the right way it needs to go. But Elon, being him, is just, it seems like he's going to just throw and make some noise in the direction, right?
There's no good thing that can possibly come of this. About the freedom to do this to people is awful. So yes, again, he's continuing with his provocateur role, but yes, again, once that winds its way through, then we'll see exactly how strong those protections are for individuals. All right, that is our AI and tech news this week. Let's jump into our weird AI of the week. All right, this one's a fun one. So, Premier League champions Arsenal are this week looking for an AI research engineer to help them in their men's football club. Okay, so football team. So the advert is on X is quite amusing as well, because it's got kind of like basically how you would use AI. It's got the pitch with like the individual players and the opposition on there, and they're going through a spatiotemporal transformer to get data out so that they can basically, presumably, play better, win more games. Matt, this is quite fun, isn't it?
It is, and I actually think it's probably Arsenal well behind the curve as well, right? Just in terms of in AI, it's because they're referring to it as a research engineer. But if you look at footy, as we do, from following different blue teams, and they look at Brentford and Brighton, who both do really well unearthing these incredible players, then they're actually using data science already, aren't they? Which is, they're looking at what's going on. The thing that I think is great with Arsenal and poking a bit of fun is how much research do you need to do to just put everybody on the 6-yard box and try to drop the ball on top of Gabriel's head.
Stick it in the mixer.
Exactly. And then for both ends of the pitch. Congratulations. I didn't realise till I was reading this tweet that there's actually a term for it, which I think is haramball. Whoever haramball is, we'll find out, and you can stick it in your email on Friday for everyone to ignore.
Exactly right. So yeah, no, it is if we take this to businesses in general, the use of this stuff, it can be in any particular kind of frame, right? So, from, how do you organize the viewings, how can you get the logistics around that even better? Analyze the viewings, who does the best viewings? How long do they last? What order do they go around the property? That sort of thing. There is so much that you can improve from a performance level. I'm using air quotes here for those not watching. No, there's tools out there like Prospector Pro for, improving your calls, actually coaching you on the calls while you're talking away. So there's some really good stuff out there, well worth looking at. But yes, the fact that Arsenal themselves are also now in the mix for getting some of this AI is a
very
real
good pun, that.
Thank you very much indeed. A real stamp of approval. All right, finally, we're on to our tool of the week. So this week, ChatGPT has been creating a small business program. So it is worth going and searching up ChatGPT small business program, because essentially what you can get there is various, for your businesses, you can get things like hands-on virtual training, in-person small business AI academies, there's guides, there's new agents and partners built already for small businesses. So worth going and having a look at some of those tools and what they can actually do for you. Now, obviously, they're quite general. They plug into things like Dropbox, Shopify, Slack, things like that. But yes, again, certainly, in our kind of mission to get as many people AI literate as possible, I think that this is a really, really powerful way of doing that, right, Matt?
Absolutely. And pairing that with ChatGPT Work, which came out a few weeks ago and is the OpenAI's equivalent of Claude Co-work. So for more the day-to-day user rather than the coding agent, pair ChatGPT Work with these small business plugins, and they become extensions to the brain that is ChatGPT. So well worth getting in and having a look. And as you say, there's the additional ones, things like QuickBooks and Wix, that you can get pulled in and get that work, get scheduled tasks set up to wake up in the morning and see all the invoices that have been paid overnight, that sort of thing. And so definitely a great way to experiment with this stuff.
100%. Good stuff. All right. Well, listen, thank you everybody for listening. This is all we've got time for this week. Matt, what are you up to this weekend?
Absolutely nothing, Mal. What about yourself?
I'm going to an Ibiza night tomorrow night, somewhere nice down by the river. So that should be good fun. But apart from that, yeah, just chilling, I guess, in the sunshine with any luck. But look, hope everybody else is going to have similarly fun weekends. And yeah, we will be back again in 7 days' time with even more property and AI news. And we will see you then.